She's my cherry pie. Cool drinking water, such a sweet surprise. Tastes so good, make a grown man cry. Sweet cherry pie. Yeah! Fascinating graveyard. Today we're at the Bear Creek Cemetery here in Euless, Texas. This was an email suggestion by a subscriber, and I am fulfilling their request. So today we're gonna go visit the grave of Warrant's lead singer, Janie Lane. Janie Lane. A very tragic story, to say the least. So let's start off by saying that Janie Lane was born February 1st, 1964 in Akron, Ohio, of all places, which I'll be going there very soon. So his real name, this is kind of strange. His real name is John Kennedy Oswald. You know, like the Oswald that supposedly killed John F. Kennedy. So I believe the mother was a big fan of John F. Kennedy, and their family last name was Oswald, so they gave him the middle name Kennedy, but I guess they figured that it sounded kind of weird, so they changed it to Patrick. So John Patrick Oswald. So I guess you can call this guy a musical prodigy, because when he was about 5 years of age, he had already started kind of messing around with drums and guitars and stuff like that. But this guy was no joke. He was a real cut-up artist with a drum kit. So by the time he was already 11 years old, this guy was jamming with adults. And he would play at this local club with a band of adults, and he's 11, 12 years old. That's quite impressive. So he taught himself to play drums, guitar, and piano all by ear. I would call that a musical prodigy. So after he graduated from high school in 1982, he heads over to Florida, and he plays drums in a band called Dorian Gray. Has anybody ever heard of them? Dorian Gray? They're still up. They still have a website. A bunch of old guys. So I don't know if it's the same Dorian Gray. But anyway, so, he decides that, he's going to take music, or at least make music his life. So he moves to LA, and he would later hook up with a band called Plain Jane. And then so he he came up with the name Jani Lane. But he spelled Johnny Jani. So I guess that's like the German way of how you say it or pronounce it or something. So he went by Jani Lane, but when people would see his name and how it's spelled, they called him Janie Lane. So it stuck. So there you go. There's Janie Lane. So he played with the Plain Janes. The Plain Janes, their music is, I'm not a big fan of punk music, but I guess you can call their music like glam punk. And, Plain Jane, they're one of those bands, while during the 80s, they're playing up and down the Sunset Strip. They're playing clubs in the Valley, all over Southern California. And, a lot of times they're opening up for other bands like Poison. I believe they might have opened up for GNR before. And they also opened up for Warrant. That's right. There was another lead singer before Warrant. His name was Adam Shore. He was the lead singer of Warrant. So they would oftentimes open up, but these guys, sometimes they wouldn't get booed, but they weren't very well received. I guess people just weren't really into the whole glam punk thing. Big hair, but it's punk music. I thought their music wasn't too bad. You know what I mean? So later on, Warrant, the guy Adam Shore, for some unknown reason, he decides to split the band. So I'm not sure why, but this Adam Shore guy, he takes the original drummer from Warrant, Max Asher, and they both leave. They went to go make a band called Hot Wheels. I never heard of them. I haven't heard of their music. In my opinion, probably not the wisest thing to do. I don't know if they regret it. I'm sure they do. So they leave the band Warrant. So now Warrant doesn't have a singer. So a guy, Eric Turner, one of the original members of Warrant, the story goes as follows: that one day he's watching Plain Jane. They're either rehearsing or they're performing. And so he's checking them out, and he notices that, well, Janie Lane, Janie, there's something about him that he feels like, man, this guy has the look. And back in those days, it was really important, with the whole hair metal thing, it was really important to have that look, that big hair, that, the makeup, the pretty boy image, the look, the sexy rock and roller. So he hits up Janie. He says, hey man, you want to come try out? We're looking for a singer. And he said, sure, why not? So they kind of jam together, and it's a good vibe, and they bring him aboard, as the lead singer. And they also took a couple other members from Plain Jane. They took Stephen Sweden, Joey Allen. So now you have Warrant, right? You have Warrant, and now it's time to do big things. So Warrant actually put out a demo with Prince, Prince. So he paid for them to rehearse and cut out a demo. I don't know if Prince was definitely supposed to sign them to Paisley Park Records or whatever his record distribution company was called, but I guess he didn't really like them, but he let them keep the demo. So they shopped the demo around, and then they would later get picked up and signed by Columbia Records. Okay, now you get signed. So now it's time, you signed the record contract, you get a big advance. You're gonna have to pay that advance back. So they get to working on their first album, which was Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinkin' Rich, which charted at number 10 on the Billboard Top 200 in January of 1989. And that's where that single Heaven, it's like a power ballad song, that's where that came from. And their second album, that is where their iconic song, Cherry Pie, She's My Cherry Pie, I just sang that song for you. So that girl in that video, she was kind of like an actress model. Her name was Bobby Brown. Well, Janie Lane ended up marrying Bobby Brown, and they had a kid together. So, listen, Warrant, they kind of went the way of a lot of hair metal bands did in those days, So they had 3 albums all together. They sold about 10 million records. A very, 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 very successful band. Janie Lane would oftentimes, throughout the course of his life, have issues with depression and alcoholism, big time alcoholism. Janie Lane, I watched a lot of interviews from this guy. A very nice guy. I don't say that very often about people when you could just tell he was a very, very nice guy. And he would leave the band, come back to the band, leave the band, do all of that stuff. Now, I wanted to talk about, really quickly, their third album, right? So their third album, what was it called? Dog Eat Dog? Or something like that. So their third album sounds way different than their first 2 albums, because that album, some of the songs, I would almost describe them as Alice in Chains light. Like, they weren't that dark, but check out that song Machine Gun. I listened to that entire album. I was kind of like, listening to it in the background while I was like looking up stories and stuff like that. I like that song, and that album was pretty good, I would say. They didn't have too many songs that were kind of dark like that. I really wish they would have, because I think that if they would have stuck together and produced more albums, I think they could have transgressed or transformed, whatever that word is. They could have transformed into, not saying that they would have been a grunge band, but they could have easily done what Kiss did, which is kind of progress into a different style of music. But then grunge came, and then hair metal bands were no longer popular. They were no longer in, they were no longer fashionable, right? And then you had Nirvana and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and Mudhoney and whoever else. This totally just changed the rock and roll scene. So after Janie leaves Warrant, I think he did like a couple little reality shows here and there or what have you. But for the most part, that was it. I mean, I know he did his own thing. He did a solo album, I believe. And, you know, definitely Warrant. And I'm pretty sure they continue, because they do have a new singer. They continue to tour now. But, I mean, if that band would have stayed together, they could have toured forever and ever and ever. I mean, look at Motley Crue. They can come out of retirement right now and have somebody replace Mick Mars, and they'll still sell out at least, you know, I don't know if they'll sell out arenas. They probably would, though. And so, you know, Janie Lane, he would just continue to kind of aspire into alcoholism and depression. And it really just a sad ending to a guy who seems pretty nice. August 11th of 2011 at a motel in Woodland Hills, somebody called 911 and said that there was a man in that room and he wasn't responding. And when they got there, he was pronounced dead at the scene. This is the final resting place of Janie Lane, and he's buried next to his wife, Kimberly Lane. She tragically died in a car accident on December 14th of 2020. She was on a highway and she got ejected from her vehicle, and then another car came and ran her over. Very, very tragic way she died. Very horrible. But yeah, Janie Lane, right there. Beloved father, husband, and friend, always loved, never forgotten. There's a note right here. Let me see what that says. You are a current whose voltage knows no end. To whoever left that note, thank you for doing that. I don't know who left the picture of them, but thank you to whoever did that. You know, when I do videos like this, you know, even though, you know, I didn't listen to Warrant because, you know, the glam rock wasn't really my thing. 80s rock isn't really my thing. You know, I'm into more like grunge, more kind of harder rock. But I really wish that I could play their music in these videos. But then not only, you know, yeah, you got to get paid to do some videos, but then it gets copyrighted and then they could strike you. The reason why I would like to play their music is because I like that song Machine Gun. So I'll put the link in the description. Just, hey, check that song out. A lot of fans of Warrant say that their third album is their best. So check out Machine Gun. Good song. I'm going to listen to it right now. Machine Gun. Rest in peace to Janie and Kimberly. God rest their souls. Okay, guys. Fascinating graveyard. I'm out of here. I'm heading north, going north about an hour. Gonna go check something out. Be good, y'all. God bless. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.